So what are, as council, what are we doing approving a variance that has approved by their strata in the first place? I don't understand that. I'm not a legal expert about himself, but I can't worms.
That there's a lot of buildings there, and you know, there's other places perhaps to walk, and I think they'd be hard pressed to. I mean, I can ask them, but there's bigger issues than just walking on the grounds. So I think that it's something that would have to be talked about very, very seriously.
In the past, there has been convinced to open several points on the grounds with access gates. One in particular, I remember being the southwest corner. I have noticed that these gates are quite often locked. It just seems to me vandals quite readily will climb a fence, whereas somebody walking their dog would prefer not to.
I was meaning, you know, from that end.
The buildings themselves, but the grounds, I think, too, should be accessible. Councillor,
I'll put it on the expensive debt.
Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, I think I made it quite clear that I felt that there could be a lot more green space opened up, and that's all I'm saying is, I don't know the logistics, I don't know how to, but that is public, really more accessible, more regular, and I think it'll open up a lot of green space.
And it is, basically, it's just hard to get out. The same stuff. All right. So we have item 11.1, Director of Engineering Public Works Street Lighting Request. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Kentel, second by Councillor Eliason, that Council request BC Hydro to expand the existing overhead street lighting system by 7 high-pressure sodium fixtures in locations as outlined in Schedule A of the memorandum from the Director of Engineering and Public Works dated October 2007.
Engineer.
Your Worship, anyway, we send an advertisement out to residents to provide us the areas they know that we should add streetlights to our street lighting system. And here are hydro lease lights that are sold on the existing BC Hydro pole. We've had a number of requests, and as shown in Appendix A, we're showing to approve 7 of the requests. And we have 5 that we're showing that we are denying, or recommend that they be denied. And maybe I'll run through the 5 denials and to try to explain why. The first one is on 5th Street Southeast, from Okanagan Avenue to 4th Southeast. We have 3 existing lights on existing hydrant poles on the west side of 5th. And there are poles on the east side, but they're owned by me. We would have to put another pole on the east to add another light. So the area is lit, but it's not lit like you would have in a urban subdivision with street lights all designed. But we do have that, so we're saying we don't need another. The second item is the Jackson Campus McGuire Lane crossing on 10th Avenue. We don't have any power in this crossing. It would be good to have a light there. However, what I'm looking at is when the Shuswap Regional Hospital expands, we will have more street lighting on the west side of 10th, and then we will extend the power to the southerly limit of the hospital end. It will be more economical for us to extend that power and continue it and then put a light at this crossing to light that pedestrian crossing.
Are solar powered lights an option?
They're an option. They do cost money. Their capital cost is significant.
Yeah.
I 3570 16th Avenue Southeast, and we're proposing above to add a light at Southeast on number 1, which is in the same subdivision. There is a light at the intersection of 36th Street and 16th Avenue Northeast. And to add this additional light will be more just to light up the road than it would be to light up the road when proceeding. With this relatively close at the existing intersection. Number 4 is 24th Avenue between Lakeshore Road and 21st Street Southeast. Northeast, pardon me. There is power there actually, that's a report. But we're proposing to add these lights under the capital project when we it's approved in the budget. So it would occur there, and if we had adding 2 lease light poles. Power poles do have to be called. And And then 10th Avenue Northeast near the Transcan. Problem is this is at the trailer court. They're asking for a light near their intersection. And there's no power on that road, and the closest power pole is on 10th Avenue Southeast on the old frontage road that ran off of Trans-Canada Highway. There are two other items. One was one we missed, and it's actually every year, and that's the intersection of 20th Avenue and 40th Street Northeast. That's in the rural area. If you think of the Sound GM, that's on 40th Street, and it's north at 20th Avenue. There's no power intersection. It's reviewed before, and we'd have to extend the hydro, put in additional poles to put in the light there. And it may be one when, if Salmon and GM develops and the road becomes busier, then we may look at doing that expenditure to extend the BCI system. And if we don't proceed. And the other one that's not shown, we just received late, and that's at the intersection of 20th Avenue Northeast, just east of the Trans-Canada Highway. And with the Trans-Canada Highway upgrading, the intersection well lit up, and it's very well lit. This light would be about 100 meters to the east, and it's really to, I guess, provide lighting for the adjacent property, not a benefit for traffic and safety. So we don't recommend proceeding that one.
Thank you. Councillor Zinn.
Primary comment, thank you, Your Worship, was going to be in relation to the Jackson Campus Field McGuire Lake Crossing, because I know that one was, I think, came originally through the either Parents Advisory Committee or similar through the school district. However, recognizing that the Director of Engineering has indicated that we would likely put that in place, it's less of a concern, although, of course, time frame may not be to the like those that requested it. Nonetheless, I would like at some point in the future, if staff have the opportunity, to get some more detailed information in terms of the suggestions of solar-powered lighting. And I know from FCM and UBCM that there was a variety of providers that are starting to talk about LED-based lighting, which, of course, is that much more efficient. And to know whether or not any of these combinations of technologies would allow us to, in some of these cases where power poles or sources are an issue, we might look at doing that if we really find that there's a drive and not have to say always, well, it's just because we can't get a wire there. So certainly I'd like to have some more, whether or not in some cases council can say, no, we'd like to make an exception and put in the more expensive technology, but that precludes having to put in the wiring.
Councillor Eliason.
As said, which I don't know, it was really explained that well. What we do is puts in the lights, and we basically rent them off them for $130 per light per year. Is that sort of how it goes?
That's correct, Your Worship. We pay actually the 2007 rate is $10.06.
Okay, for a light. So in order for us to, just like doing the solar lights and the freestanding lights, we would have to put up our own poles and then determine the return on capital cost for that. So at $130 a year, if that was the solar light, the pole costs $1,300, we're well over a 10-year payback, and if that outbeats the life plus the solar box and the efficiency, then it's worth it. Otherwise, the maintenance isn't worth it. So until we can, I'd really like to see the solar lights, and I'd really like to see that happen, but until we can get an efficient model to beat the price right now, it's not fit to do for our taxpayers.
Your Worship, it costs, I think, over $2,500 to install the street light, so the payback period is much. And I have some research on LED lighting, and it's very early in the process of actually getting them commercially available. And when they do become commercially available, we look forward to. It'll cut the hydro cost by 90%.
However, if we become signatories to this climate change charter, as some of our citizens are urging us to do, perhaps they'd be willing to pay that price. Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask about different lights and timers and all that stuff, so I'll just leave it.
Councillor Kendall.
Yes, the one that has been denied for 20th and 21st, I know that's going to, we'll be discussing it, and I hope it does get approved over that way now, and be good to have light in that area. And then I was just going to make a comment about, I had a couple of people, and it's interesting how our community is, because the opposite position on